Okay. I hope this works better. And I'm sorry for all the confusion. I'm sending a new link. Um, there was some bug that got us in a real. Uh, I'm sorry you couldn't hear it. It was fascinatingly horrible. I'll email this to you all for those of you who were on the call just a minute ago. Hopefully we'll find our friends again. Call Bridget Nelson.
Calling Bridget Nelson.
Hey, Bridget, sorry. I had to create a new link. I hope you guys, I don't know if you're still talking. Um, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. If you could let Tony and Judy know too. Thanks. Thanks. Sorry. Bye. Hello.
Hello.
I don't know what was going on. That was terrible.
You just had a little taste of like what it feels like to be mentally ill.
Wow. It was amazing. And there were these segments where we were quiet. And so then we would talk more in I would talk more in those segments and it would just fill up all the segments. Oh, okay. Hello, Tony and Judy, I can hear you, and I don't have any voices running in my head. I'm so thankful.
Yay.
Thank you for following us to this new link.
No problem.
And I wouldn't have changed except that this is the way that we can do an archive for people that would like to hear more about what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Understand.
Okay, thanks. Well, I think that we have been talking here for a few minutes, but welcome to the kind of a new series of Brown Bag Lunchtime conversations. We'll try to do 20, 30 minutes here while we break in the middle of our day. We're joined by Bridget Nelson from the Detroit Annual Conference, working in youth and young adult ministries there. Soon to be the Michigan area. We'll talk a little bit about that. Michigan Conference, soon to be the Michigan Conference. And Tony and Judy Hypes. Do you want to introduce yourselves for anybody that doesn't know you yet around the NEJ?
Absolutely. I'm Tony Hypes, and this is my wife, Judy. I'll let her introduce herself too. I serve a local church as a full-time elder, but also volunteer as a co-coordinator in the conference youth ministries for the Upper New York Annual Conference. I also serve as co-coordinator with Bruce Gow in the Northeast Jurisdictional Council on Youth Ministries.
Thanks, Tony.
Go ahead.
Oh, me? Yes. Hi, I'm Judy. I'm his other half, and I serve as the district youth coordinator for the Niagara Frontier District, one of the 12 districts in our conference.
Great.
And I also serve on the CCYM as registrar and keeper of the whip.
Someone's got to do it.
Well, I invited Bridget because it sounded like across the Northeast jurisdiction, there was some level of kind of re-envisioning conference youth ministries. Some at the very, right, starting totally fresh. Some like you all who have had things going and are kind of keeping things going. But I assume that in the keeping going, there's always a kind of a constant, renewal of what are we doing and why. Bridget's kind of in the middle. I think you've had a few years here now, Bridget, but with another new start kind of on the horizon. I wonder if you could you just get us started and kind of describe where Detroit has been, is going, and what are the critical elements that you've found that you've needed to put in place for that kind of rebooting?
So you're talking about at the conference level?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I think, first of all, Detroit Annual Conference has had a staff person for a number of years, which I think is a really positive step for a couple reasons. First of all, it puts it puts more money behind it. It puts it in the priorities. It gets a youth person at staff meetings. It gets a youth person in the bishop's office. I mean, it does a lot of things that are really important. So when we had a staff person before me, we had a person for a couple of years who was tasked with, building CCYM, and it was to be an opportunity for leadership, opportunity for discipleship, and also, this ability to create kind of almost like a statewide youth group, which became harder and harder to do, as I'm sure other people experience as well. We're really challenged by geography here, which I'm sure other conferences are too. So when that person left, they took about a year off and really redesigned kind of how this was going to work, and it really became focused on youth workers instead of being focused on the statewide youth group. So my job is really to support and resource and encourage youth workers in local churches, under the assumption that most kids who are going to connect to the Methodist Church and grow in their faith through our local churches, that's where they're going to connect, is in their local church. So this idea that what can the conference do to build capacity at the local church level so that kids find a meaningful program right where they live?
Was there an intentional move to when you engage local church youth leaders, are there some district leaders too, or is that kind of a level of church that isn't really a part of the strategy right now?
Well, I don't know if it's a part of the strategy. It's not there. Like we have, so the Detroit Annual Conference has 6 districts. West Michigan has 6, but only 5 DSs. I think that's what it is right now. And we have all total in all those 12 districts, we have 1 district level coordinator, and she's just started like last week. So, and different districts have had different people at different times, but I would say across the board has not been a priority. And I think even when they did, I'm not sure there was a ton of coordination between the conference level and the district level. I would like to see more of that, but for whatever reason, right now our districts aren't hiring that person.
Yeah. And
We have some volunteers though too, I guess. I should say that. There are some districts that have like a volunteer coordinator that does, an annual event for youth. And I try to connect with those people as much as I can and promote those events, especially because districts are, they're kind of a false line in the sand. So like for us, if the Renaissance District is putting something on, there's no reason Ann Arbor churches can't come to that, So
Right.
I think if they can, what I try to say to anyone I know in that boat is like, give me your stuff, because I do a monthly email, I do a blog, I do our Facebook page. I'll promote your stuff, whoever it's supposed to be for. Anybody can come.
the regional, yeah, for communications wise, we might as well put all the stories somewhere
Absolutely.
together.
We have a group up near Traverse City, so for people who don't know our geography, I mean that's 4.5 hours north of the metro area, and it's way up north. But they're really organized. Every year they have this big thing at their indoor water park, and they they bring in a speaker. This year they're bringing in like a comedian. I mean, they do this cool weekend event. And when I said, can I publicize that? They're like, well, no one would come. And I was like, you don't know that? I mean, there certainly are churches around Detroit, around Grand Rapids, around Saginaw, Flint area that might want to do a weekend, or they got to drive a little ways and get away. I mean, and I think some have. So just doing that kind of like cross promotion and helping people see that their leadership might be in the district, but their audience can be bigger.
Sure. I'll just have a couple more questions, and then Tony, Judy, if you've got some things that you're interested in connecting with. Hi, Amanda. Hi.
Hi.
Carl here. We're
Hi
talking.
there.
Bridget Nelson is telling us a little bit about the strategy that she's deploying to do some rebooting of conference-wide youth ministry in the Detroit Annual Conference. Bridget, can you tell us a little bit about the cohort that you have of youth leaders?
Yeah, so Michigan has our two conferences have been working together for a couple of years to do something called the Reach Summit. Is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the Reach Summit is an event where they encourage churches to bring their leaders. And then out of the Reach Summit, so it's like a day and a half on a weekend in October. And then out of that, you're encouraged to join a network group for the next year. And so I run a group for youth workers out of the Reach Summit. So at the summit, I do a workshop. And then anyone who's working with youth, I have some pastors, some deacons, a lot of staff from bigger churches, and a couple of volunteers from smaller churches. We meet once a month for a whole year, and I'm responsible for I make sure we have a good speaker or a good book and lunch, and that's been really great. I think we've really tapped into a need because in our system, our clergy, and I'm married to a clergy person, so I see that they have a lot of meetings where they see each other. And I mean, not that the meetings are super fun or anything, but people see each other, they get together, there's that camaraderie, there's fellowship, there's some encouragement, there's kind of the shared burdens piece that happens naturally, I think, among our clergy. And then I think you have these church staff people who end up fairly isolated in their own building. And you can start to feel like, I'm the only person who can't figure out what to do with this kid who, wants to run away from home, or this kid who's having some mental health issues, or this kid who is just causing tons of drama, or this kid, whatever. And what you don't realize is there's people in every church around your block that are dealing with the same stuff, but they don't have that opportunity to get together and read information, hear speakers, and then just also share their, commiserate a little bit, also share their celebrations. So I found a real, people have really gotten excited about that. Last year we had I think 18 people came at some point from 14 different churches. And so we're getting ready to start again this year, next week. But I just think it's really important to give these folks an opportunity to see each other, to get to know each other, share resources, and encourage one another.
Yeah. And last question I've got. So Conference Council on Youth Ministries has been kind of a showplace for developing youth as leaders for the church. I mean, I think in its best forms, these are some folks that aren't just getting together for an extra youth group, but that are somehow leading some kind of student movement across the conference. What are some things that you've been working on to address that kind of option that the conference can provide that might not be able to provide it at a grand scale at a local church?
We have, well, CCYM here has become pretty focused around a couple of events. So because we're really spread out, we have kids up in the Upper Peninsula all the way down to like Monroe, Michigan. So we're looking at like a 14-hour spread in terms of where kids live. So we're not doing a lot of like weekend retreats. Like that's really challenging geographically. We do regular conference calls, and then I offer a fall retreat from the conference level, and I encourage CCYM kids to come with their church. And some of them have been able to do that. Some of them are just not because of the distance. And so that's open to the whole conference, but I really encourage CCYM kids to attend that if they're able, and bring their church if they can. And then the other thing we do offer a summer leadership academy. And that's where CCYM really does most of its work in the summer for a week up at one of our camps. It's called Thrive. And so this will be our 3rd year doing that. So that's something I started when I started this job. We had that in the past, and then it had sort of gone away. And this is kind of the reinvention of it. It's really focused on leadership and discipleship. And we've designed it so that a church like nominates a student to attend it. So it's not just a thing a kid can be like, yeah, that sounds fine. It's more like your church picks a kid, and not with the intention of turning away anybody, but with the idea that you would be nominated by your church. Then when you're nominated, you're asked to fill out an application, and then you hear from me, and it's mostly so that you know what you're getting into. What had happened in the past, I think, from what I heard, was that they kept offering this summer camp that got really watered down because a lot of kids would show up at it who didn't know they were signing up for a leadership camp. They thought they were going to summer camp. So then it turned into this like, well, we can't do this class when none of the kids want to do it kind of thing. So try to make sure every kid knows what they're signing up for, that we are going to go to the beach, but we're also going to have like classes, and give them a chance to say why they would want to do that. So the first year we had 14 kids. Last year we had 18. So I anticipate that will grow, and as more churches find out about it, especially we have so many churches, as I think every conference does, that doesn't have an active youth program, but they have a couple of kids that are kind of hanging around, and so this is a great thing to like send one of those kids to, and it helps them feel part of something. It helps them meet other kids around the conference who also think being in the Methodist youth group is neat. And that's been really good. And that group, like tonight, we have a conference call with CCYM, and most of those kids have now been to camp together twice. So that just helps them get to know each other and build those relationships too.
That's great.
And the last thing we do is we try to do a spring retreat. Doesn't always end up being in person, but to do the youth service fund work, our officer elections, and then get ready for annual conference.
Oh, so you've really put some of that administrative stuff into a little box and put it over here.
That's where it should be.
Okay. I like it. I assume that the wisdom there is sometimes if you have a retreat, then that's the only business. It becomes the only business that you ever do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Great. Well, what are some other questions or insights that you all might have for Bridget, or from your own experiences with engaging people across the conference for youth leadership and kind of creating a movement of successful local youth ministries as well?
Back to your the cohort program that you've developed, is that the participation level, is it a mix of paid youth workers or volunteer youth workers, or what kind of a ratio do you have in the annual conference?
Oh, in the annual conference?
Yeah, for your cohort program.
I'm sorry?
For the cohort program that you're working on.
The youth worker network is probably disproportionately paid staff. When I started it, I did a lot of surveying of the people who showed interest, like from the Reach Network, which had been on a Saturday all day. And then the people I was already in touch with, just because I've been in youth ministry a long time and have met a number of people. And I asked, like, when should we do it? Because I know if we do it on a weekday, we eliminate people who do this as kind of a side thing and have a day job, you know? On the other hand, if we do it on the weekend, so many of our people are, especially our volunteers, are parents, and they have kids who have 3 soccer games, a Boy Scout thing, and a youth group thing, all, so I put this thing out, and it turned out that we had no more availability on Saturdays than we did on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Like the people who said I can't come on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday because I have a job also said, but yeah, I can't give a Saturday a month either. So I ended up going with the weekday meeting because it works better for me because I'm a parent who runs around on Saturdays with kids, but also that made it really, really possible for our churches who have staff people. And so I think in the first year in particular, it was mostly part-time or full-time paid staff at churches that were, I'm trying to look around the room. Carl, you were there too, but I think it was that's mostly what it was.
Yeah.
And so my antidote to that, because I know that so many of our churches are, the leadership in the youth group is coming from adult volunteers. I'm working with, we have one of our biggest churches actually, in Dexter, Michigan. Their youth worker is looking to offer like a twice a year, Saturday all day youth worker 101 kind of thing. And he's asked me to help with that. And I'm really excited about that because it'd be great to offer. I think there are a whole bunch of people who aren't going to say, yes, I'll come one Saturday a month. That's just too much, even if Saturday is, the day that works. But maybe twice a year, they'd be willing to give their day for that. So I'm going to look for more things like that to offer as well, to try to catch more people.
Sounds like then you could use at least paid staff, part-time, full-time, as a bit of a stepping stone to creating an overall kind of landscape of opportunities for growing. Yeah.
And I think as much as I at first kind of bemoaned that, like, oh, I'm not going to have these kind of just people who really want to offer something in the room at the, that's an issue to deal with. But also there are some unique issues to these people who are tasked with full-time Christian ed, youth group, adult ed, confirmation. Some of the job descriptions we've come up with for youth workers in our local churches are crazy. And to be around a whole bunch of people who all are dealing with that same thing. I mean, I think they've just found a lot of kindred spirits in that room. So I think that is something that has come out of it because they all ended up being that person from different churches.
Sure. Good. Amanda, anything come up for you? Any questions or thoughts?
First, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because before it said my microphone wasn't working. So
Okay.
I'm just kind of taking it all in right now because I just started in this role December 1st. So I'm just learning everything.
Which conference are you in?
Western Pennsylvania.
Okay. Is there 2 conferences in Pennsylvania?
There's 3.
Oh.
Yeah. There's Western Pennsylvania, Susquehanna, and Eastern Pennsylvania.
What was that middle one?
Susquehanna.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do it right over in the NEJ.
I got the east and the west part real good.
The big river that flows through Pennsylvania. In the middle of the state.
I'm such a Midwesterner. I'm sorry.
Do you you have a sense of the history, Amanda? What were you handed when you arrived?
Well, the last coordinator's been here for like about 12 years. And we have several events that we do throughout the year. We have Spark, which is our like conference youth rally. And we just had that over the weekend. So we had over 500 kids come out to that. We had Sanctus Real play, and Bob Lenz was the speaker. And then we have a missions thing we do in the summer. And then we also have annual conference that we plan for. So I'm just doing one thing at a time. So now I guess I'm working on annual conference stuff, which is until June. But I'm sure there's a lot that I don't know that will creep up on me at the last minute. So that's kind of what we do. We have a conference youth ministry team that really they did a whole lot of work for Spark because they didn't have somebody in the position. The person in the position before me resigned in September. And so they filled it quickly, but there was still a lapse of time there. So they really stepped up, and we really try to do youth leading youth. That's our whole thing. If we can equip the youth to really do a lot of the work, doesn't mean that I don't do anything. I do all the stuff that they don't consider, they don't think about, but that, they're the ones on the stage doing announcements at Spark. They're the ones that are manning all the special rooms and the breakout rooms and all of that stuff. So that's really one of the things we try to do here. And it depends on the group of kids you have at that particular year. This year, they're pretty good. In the past, it's been a different issue. So we'll see. But one of the things I really want to try and do is more leadership training for youth leaders in our conference. A lot of our youth leaders have zero or no budget. And so they want to know, how do I fundraise? How do I do this kind of stuff? And they're all, volunteer or very part-time. Mm-hmm. And so to try and do some more of that type of leadership training is what I really would like to start doing more of.
That's great.
Bridget, do you have any reflections? Across the Northeast jurisdiction, there's actually quite a lot of annual rally type gatherings, and some of them are fairly large. What has the fall rally kind of story been in Detroit, and how are you addressing it?
How am I addressing it? Our fall rallies stunk. That's the history. We had and I only know because I was a youth worker who was bringing a group to it at the time. We had an event that was it was like 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock on a Saturday in Flint, which, unless you lived within like a 2-mile radius, you were not going to that. And more than half our conference does not live in a 2-hour radius. So it wasn't a great event. And honestly, what you're talking about with student leadership is really great. I always tell people, like, student leadership is so much more work than adult leadership. I mean, it's an incredible amount of work. And I think that was clearly the goal of the group that was running our fall rally, but it wasn't being done very well. And so I feel like students were, just from an observer, which was all I was at the time, the students were being thrown up front completely unprepared to lead anything. And so that was just frustrating to watch. I don't think it was well done. And I told leaders of it, I wanted to help. I offered my 2 cents regularly. And so that ended before I came on. That a decision to end that had been made, which was good. It was the right thing to do. So what I've done since then, since I came on, was to offer a fall retreat. I really decided to zero in on these small little churches where there's, literally 1 to 10 youth and an adult volunteer, churches that are not going to plan a fall retreat. I mean, these are not churches that are going to go make a reservation at a camp and hire a leader, all that, they're just not going to do that. So I started a fall retreat designed to bring them, get them all together. So like this year at our fall retreat, we had 70 people from 11 churches. That just tells you these are small groups, but none of those groups were going to be able to have a fall retreat otherwise. So, I mean, that's the whole point, is that if you've got a church with 150 kids in your high school youth group, you don't need the conference to plan your fall retreat. You take up a camp all by yourself. So, but if you only have 3 kids, you're looking for somewhere to bring them. And so I'm trying to provide more of that to these youth workers to say, let me plan the retreat. I'll get a speaker. I'll get Carl to come bring his guitar and lead music. But you just got to show up and bring your kids. And then they get to jump into the big group and be part of a fall retreat with a big group of kids. Did that answer your question?
I think so. I think it's great. I'm glad we're having an opportunity to say we all may be at different places. When you think, I think a lot of times when people think conference youth ministry, they think whatever the big event is.
Yes.
that they equate each other. And what I'm hearing is that can be a really integral part of a successful conference plan. But you're going to have to be very intentional about how you are doing, especially how you are rebooting
Yes.
a rally type event.
And so another thing else that I'm starting to plan for next fall, we're going to offer, I'm moving from the fall retreat, to taking a year off of that to offer a statewide youth conference, which we haven't done before. I mean, the fall rally wasn't really designed for that because, well, we weren't two conferences trying to be one conference then either. But so this is, I'm having it at Mount Pleasant first, which is like halfway up, almost halfway to the UP, so that that's doable for those folks if they want to come down. Yes, if you can. Thank you, Carl. So these folks, even have a chance getting done. But I mean, I'm trying to be super realistic about it. Mount Pleasant first, where we're going to have this thing, their sanctuary seats 325 people. So it's not going to be 1,000 people. And if it is, we're in trouble. So, but just to start and to really push it towards smaller churches, like bring your couple of teens and have a fun weekend. So it's going to be more, with workshops and, not a retreat per se, more of a conference, but we'll see what happens. We haven't tried that before. At this point, I'm only committing to offering that, cutting the 4 years between the national event with this in the middle. So we do this in 17. Kansas City, I will organize buses to go to Kansas City for Youth 2019. Then maybe I'll do it again in 21 if I'm still doing this. But, so I'm not saying it's going to be an every year thing. We're going to try it and see how it goes.
Maybe a question for everybody as we looking at stopping before the top of the hour. What are some resources that would be helpful if you are in any part of the timeline of a rebooting conference youth ministry or reinvigorating what you have? What are some things that might be helpful as input or as something you could plug into that would help you do that work that I can bring back to young people's ministries and see what we could do about that?
Well, yeah, I know in Upper New York we constantly evaluate our programs, and so I'm trying to think as we, some of the things I'm hearing Bridget say. Okay, we've talked about doing our big fall weekends. We've talked about downsizing those to make them more personal, more more local. But yet we haven't got there because they're starting to grow again. So it's like, okay.
Cool problem.
Yeah. But I don't know. Resource-wise, this is good though. The brown bag. I mean, I appreciate this very much, and I think we'll be able to draw on this as a resource for some of our other coordinators in our conference, at least, to have a chance to look at this after it's on the archive.
It lets us know and share with our own people that everybody's in the same boat.
Right.
And they're all having similar issues and similar successes and similar situations. And just that fact alone is maybe not refreshing, but at least reassuring.
Sure, I hear you.
Each and every one of us. Okay.
If we can recreate technically what Bridget is able to do in a room, or any of us that might have some cohort type things, but if we can do that, conversation partners sounds like something that would be valuable.
Yes.
Amanda, Bridget, you had other suggestions, other things that might be helpful?
I'm just looking for resources myself, so
anything we can get you, huh?
There's not a whole lot. This is a unique kind of position when people ask, well, what do you do for a living? It's like, well, I kind of run youth group for a whole the whole Western Pennsylvania. That it's very odd to explain to people. So,
Oh yeah.
And I'm interested in Carlin, you do a great job of telling me about these events. I haven't gotten myself to any of them yet, but I think that I should. Because I know you had an event for central jurisdiction, North Central, people who do this job, and I wasn't able to go to that. But that kind of thing, I mean, that's not on you. You've made it available. I just haven't gotten to it. So,
well, we can also be sure that we're making that known in the ways that, you know, cut through some of the noise, so that, you know, it pops up in people's minds and things. And the national gathering this year will be in Denver area coming up in the fall. So that's another kind of ongoing one that our office kind of partners alongside. We really envision that as kind of a conference leaders are making it happen on their own and we help out kind of thing, rather than Young People's Ministries says you should come to this thing. But
I would piggyback on that for both Bridget and Amanda as you're coming on, or in sort of new, but we both find the national gathering of youth workers for the United Methodist Church it's beneficial for all of us. It's time away. It is Sabbath, but it's also time of resourcing. And we missed having Carl and others at our gathering in Arkansas. But when we go to Denver, usually it's about the second week of October, give or take. It'll be around that time frame. So as you're looking at your calendar, keep that in mind and hope that we can see you.
Yeah.
So that's a national thing for United Methodists?
Yeah, it's really kind of designed for key leaders in conference level youth and young adult ministries. So you all. But also recognizing that some conferences will have a weird staffing situation. So you might have, you know, the clergy advisor to the CCYM. Anybody like that would be kind of the intended audience.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, thanks, friends. We'll be making this video available, I think. I'll send out the link in the next newsletter, which should be coming out on the 30th. And please share it with anybody you think that this might be helpful for. And our next one is scheduled for, I'll share that. I don't have it right up in front of me. But you can be sure you're directing people to the NEJ Young People Facebook page. That has a link so that people can start getting our monthly e-newsletter. And Bridget, where can they find you if they have any follow-up questions?
Detroit Annual Conference, or actually all of our stuff is now under a Michigan area. Oh gosh.
Michigan UMC?
Yeah, Michigan UMC, that's right. Or is it Michigan area UMC?
I don't know. We're not married yet, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're not married yet, so we can't really take each other's name yet. It's a mess, but we're gonna get there.
Pretty Google friendly. You can probably find it easy.
Yes.
And Bridget's contact information is there, and a little bit about what she's doing and links to the blog and all of that. So
yeah, thanks, Carl.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day, and we'll see you soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.